This is Bay Radio.
There's a couple of weeks flown by. We're at Wednesday already, 17th of June, and welcoming back Richard Wijeratne from the XIC, Xabia International College. Mr Wij is back with us. Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to see you, Moody.
Good. It's good to see you as well. Just making some last-minute calls there. It's all go, although because I suppose you're wrapping up, it's the last week of term.
For us it is. I mean, we were going to finish next Tuesday, but quite honestly, you know, it's been a long term, probably the longest in the teachers' and pupils' memories, and certainly with the families. So we felt it was appropriate to actually bring it to a close this Friday. We're in school Monday, Tuesday next week to see some of our parents, but the children can actually clock off, and I'm sure there'll be a massive scream of relief if they are out of bed.
Well, I suppose so, yes. And it just kind of falls with them being allowed out to do just about everything but come Sunday with the end of the state of alarm.
Totally. I mean, and even in the last couple of weeks, I think when we spoke, we were talking about how lovely it was that children were attending classes and actually able to speak, to interact with their friends that they weren't seeing because they couldn't actually socialise. Now they're having a bit more of that, and you know, for their mental, physical well-being, it's so much more positive. So yeah, we're in a good place, and you know, I said the last time we spoke that it was it was a privilege to see how these youngsters have reacted throughout our community, wherever they've gone to school. But it's a real pleasure to see how they've attacked the challenges that they've had to face, and now they can see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we covered that, as you said, last time you were in, how that's all came into place with the remote learning, that sort of thing. Yeah. And that's tougher than people might imagine, certainly on the teachers.
Well, it is.
For preparation, they're all day and into the evening.
It is. You know, I mean, we said last time, and I'll say it again, and you know, you can only see how people react to challenges, and I felt for years that a great deal of what we do is 90% attitude and 10% ability. It's the right attitude that gets you to the right place quickly, and the attitude that the staff have adopted has created that sort of commitment from the children to their lessons. And you just can't thank the staff. I know I did last week, but I cannot thank the staff enough. They deserve a massive holiday, and we look forward to celebrating with them in the not too distant future when we can all get together, because some of us have met, but the most of us have not seen each other for a good 10-12 weeks.
Yes, of course. Yeah. I mean, you've got a good team around you, as we know, and as I think we made clear last time. But let's talk about you, shall we? Personally, well, let's talk about the school, because as we said, XIC, so the X for the Xabia there, International College. You've been. I remember when you moved there over 2 years ago, unbelievably.
Yes, I mean, it's gone in a heartbeat. And, you know, many of my colleagues that I work with have been at the Xabia International College for a long time, and their commitment is amazing. But, you know, I've absolutely loved it. My life is teaching. My life is working with young people. And with that, I mean not just the children, because the older you get, the younger the staff seem and appear to be. But,
quite.
You know, they are. It has been an amazing journey, because there is a vision. It's a simple vision. I believe, put it very simply, we have a story to tell at XIC. It's a very simple story. It's not a huge tome. It's not a huge novel. It's a very short, sharp story. And the story is all about those individuals that are our children. And I know that that's said by all schools, but we're talking about our school. We are a community that is small, tight-knit. We're able to make decisions quickly. We're able to move very sharply when we can see something that we need. We can go and get it as quickly as we need, as staff and pupils need it. We don't have huge levels of administration. It is very straightforward. A question can be asked 1 minute and the answer is there 5 minutes later. And the reason behind my saying that is that I've tried to create an area, a place where people want to be. And I know they wanted to be there before I came there, but it's a really key area. If you get the right attitude, as I said earlier, and you have a decent amount of ability, then your success rate is phenomenal. So the story is a simple one. We want to make sure that the college remains small and tight-knit, that our classes remain small in number, and that the teacher has enough time and brain space to do the wonderful work that they do. Moody, trust me, many years ago I was a teacher and I utterly loved it. That interaction with children is something that is an absolutely beautiful experience. But I've taught classes of over 25 and I've taught classes of up to 20. And I can tell you, it doesn't matter how able you are, how resilient you are, how diligent you are in your preparation and in your delivery, there is absolutely no way that you can give what you want to a larger class of children, because children will hide and they will get lost. And you are trying to catch them and you just get distracted by another child. The fewer in number, the greater you can actually communicate with. So our deal in our story is to try to make sure that the pupils that attend the college have a greater exposure to those teachers, not just in the classroom. This is the beauty of it. And I love to see, as we're walking around at break times and at lunch times, and in the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, you see pupils gathering around teachers, asking them, talking to them, socializing, not on a level, on the same level, but asking them about issues that both teachers and children should be involved in. You know, it's a good story and it's a great narrative. So yeah, I mean, the 2 years, for me, it could probably take me about 3 or 4 or 5 hours to talk to you about it. But quite simply, you've got to make sure that you have the right people in the right places who enjoy what they're doing. And that is certainly happening.
Yeah. So it would be a case of the people, but as well as, you know, maybe 1 or 2 structural changes within the building itself. But so when you went in, did you see a lot that you needed to do? Or did you have your vision of how you wanted it to be anyway?
No. To be fair, I had absolutely no idea.
Really?
Yep, no idea. I had an idea of what's the right thing to do in a school, because I've had the pleasure of working in some good schools. But I had to watch, sit, look and assess. And the idea is not to interfere. And I hope to goodness, if people think back a couple of years ago, that I wasn't interfering, because the ideal thing to do is to really assess what you have, see how you can best use that resource, which is fundamentally the teaching staff, and then adapt and accommodate. So yes, I did move a few things around, and it's worked beautifully. People are happier in the roles that they have, I think. Well, I know, you can see it. You bring in some leadership in, well, the person that was brought into the college, into secondary, has made a massive difference. Mike Mills is an inspirational man. He's a great character. He enjoys working. He works extraordinarily hard. He leads by example. And he has this affinity towards young people that they gravitate towards him. They want to ask him his advice because they respect that, as do the staff. And the thing is, he has the most magical way of getting the best out of people. So when you talk about people being fairly aggressive in their leadership, it is quite the reverse. So he was somebody that I'd met beforehand. He worked with me very shortly at the Lady Elizabeth School when I was working there, and you could see the value of the man that he is, and he has brought out some great strengths in his staff. So yeah, that was a really good appointment. Another one, which was something that I'd observed, was the way that Gaynor Laporte, who is his assistant in secondary, the way that she has actually. The way that she's worked over many years at XIC, she knows XIC, as do many others who worked there, Fiona Phillips and her team before. You know, good people who are doing a hard job well, but Gaynor, you could see from a distance, was somebody who would be an amazing support to Mike. So the two of them worked brilliantly in secondary. Mm-hmm. In primary, Moody, I have to tell you, it's a home from home, frankly,
right.
And it's led by a gentleman who's got the biggest heart. He wears his heart on his sleeve, but that does not mean to say he's gung-ho. He is very well planned. He makes absolutely certain that he goes into every conversation that he has with a child or a parent very well prepared. So he knows what he wants from that, and he needs to understand what young people are looking for in a primary school. So he is beautifully assisted by Anya Walker. This lady it's just got inspiration written all over her. And when we have a query or a question to do with primary, we tend to go and speak to Anya because she's a problem solver and she thinks on her feet. But there are so many different characters there. You know, I'm talking about the leadership team, Virginia Lowe as well, who's joined that team to work with assessment, has been remarkable, absolutely remarkable. She works tirelessly, and I have to congratulate her because a number of things have changed and changed quickly. And that's not a bad thing, because when you surprise people, in fact, you get the best out of them. And if you want to, sometimes, if you want a job done, you give it to a busy person.
Sure.
They always find time.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned leadership there. I mean, it's leadership is leadership probably wherever you are. But within the school, it really comes into its own because there's a fine line, isn't there, when you're dealing with children that you know, they don't want to see you as some sort of monster, but there needs to be the authority still kept in place. You know, and you can't be their friend. I remember at school, you found out their first name even was a big deal. Certainly if you found out where they lived, man, that was something.
Yes.
It just breaks that sort of, that little barrier that needs to be there, doesn't it?
No, you're absolutely right. But I mean, there's the simple factor here, and that's another part of the story that is XIC. I feel that the people that I'm lucky enough to work with spend a great deal of time and energy to win the respect of the children that they teach.
That's the word, isn't it? Respect, yeah.
You have to win that respect. And if you get that right, then these young people will swim rivers and climb mountains for you, but they don't realize actually they're doing it for themselves. So a great teacher is somebody who can almost spin a story through the respect that they have, and the young person learns without even realizing they are. So there is hard work that goes into that, and I think that respect is there. It's very, very evident in secondary and in primary. It's funny, you know, because in primary, rather not funny, it's interesting. In secondary, you've got young people who are getting a little bit older, and they are encouraged to have their own opinions, and they're encouraged to make a difference every day to themselves and each other. Equally so at primary, but it's on a different level. And, you know, I think you're allowed to say, you know, children love to go to school and they love to be with their teachers. And that love is another word for respect, actually. So it's two different. I mean, I'm very lucky because I work in both schools. I go to both schools pretty much every day. I will go to both schools. So I see totally different interactions, different conversations. So from a leadership perspective, Moody, the thing in a teacher in a school, there are leaders everywhere. And in my personal opinion, I believe every teacher is a leader. And through this whole lockdown experience, you can see the teaching from pre-nursery, through foundation, through the year 1, year 2, all the way through Key Stage 2, that's the youngsters aged sort of 7 to 11. Those teachers have been amazing leaders. They have done work that they never realized that they would be able to achieve. And the youngsters just think it happens. They think it just happens.
Sure.
You know, and that's the beauty of it, because there is where the respect is actually born out. A young person believes and trusts their teacher, and that is the leader. And they're the leader of their class, and they're the leader of their group. So where we have, in a good school, does have to have leadership in management. It's management as opposed to leadership. But there are leaders at every level and in every room. And that, I think, is something that is key, because you will see that there is a weak link to most chains, but good leaders and good friends will support each other. So that link is actually not as weak as it might have been at one point.
So during this lockdown thing, I think we sort of asked you a little bit about it, but any positives? I mean, you will have learned a lot throughout, particularly at the very beginning, but what sort of positives can you take forward if I'm doing that sort of speech?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are a huge number of positives, frankly, Moody. The positives, you look at what parents have been able to do to support their children at home, which is fundamental. That's where it all starts. If you've got a parent who's proactive and supportive and generating that enthusiasm for children to attend the distance learning lessons, that's key. So that was a real positive, and they understood what we were trying to do, and they supported where they could. The younger the child, the more complicated it was. And, you know, I'd like to take this moment to say to those parents who have children who were of the younger ages of 6 and below, it's tough. And, you know, genuinely, my heart goes out to you. I have been a parent of three children. When you're outnumbered and you're trying to organise 3 children under the age of 4, under the age of 5, it's a real challenge. So I say to them, you know, what a great positive it is for you to have been able to support them to get through this time. But on the other hand, you know, you've no idea how resilient some people can be. You know, the surprises appear all the time. Teachers have proven to be extremely dedicated and resilient. And the positive about it is there is absolutely no question that we will come out of this stronger as a team. but far more well-versed in what we want to do and how we want to do things as we emerge in September. And the key to that is that people are actually doing things they never realized that they could do beforehand. And I, celebrate with them, and we will get a chance to actually thank the staff together at some stage soon. But right in the mix and front and center, our children have really blown us all away. It is, and what's quite remarkable is you might see somebody who in a class is probably not the most engaged or engaging personality because they are in front of all of their friends, and it's quite tricky sometimes. They feel it's not that they are not the most confident of youngsters. Mm-hmm. But in lockdown, it's a totally different story. It's a totally different area. So they have shone, and we've been very, very proud, and we've been able to sort of remind them of the fact that they've done so well. So frankly, positives, many, and I'm really delighted because it was scary to start with, and you didn't know exactly where we were going to end up, after the first couple of weeks. Thereafter, it has been a crescendo.
Mm-hmm. And I think you mentioned last time that now this has been done for a while. Should anything come up in the future, some sort of emergency, it can be just activated once again.
Flip straight into it.
Yeah.
And it's curious because there's so many different possibilities that we're looking into as well, where we can actually spread the name of Xabia International College far and wide with the type of teaching that we can offer thereafter. A child wanting to come to our college can experience our teaching from Germany, from Russia. Mm-hmm. And that could be done very simply. And also, we work within the international community, and we have a large number of pupils who don't have English as their first language. And we will be able to offer them support online ahead of them joining us and whilst they're with us. So it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, just talk about schooling in general. And even in the UK, can you see it changing from here on in as far as reducing school sizes? They were talking about reducing the class sizes and maybe staggering the workday so they do some work from home and then go into school for part of it. Could you see that ever coming into play? It
could happen, but what we would prefer, one of the key things to schooling and schools is social interaction. Mm-hmm, we could all be online with distance learning and in tutoring programs, etc. What is absolutely key is that you get the extrovert, the introvert, the tall, the small, the sporty, the person who's into music and drama, the person who's into whatever area of social activity that they're into. They get a chance to share that with their friends, and that's what's key. And I think us coming together into the hub that is the school is vital. It really is, and that's where relationships are made and people are supported. It's very difficult to do it remotely. I can see there being the opportunity, where necessary, and it is necessary. One of our board members, one of our shareholders, he lives on the Isle of Skye, and he talks to me often about how I should go there so that I can actually experience it firsthand, how the distance learning works there. Right. And I must and I will, and I promise Austin, I'm saying this now on air, so I can't take it back. I will come and I will experience it so we can see how we can actually take advantage of that.
Nice spot to visit, I wouldn't blame you.
Yes.
Now, what's one of the big parts, one of the big things that has come about, of course, was the cancellation of actual exams. So GCSE and A-levels, those students that would have been taking them around now or maybe just before, it's come back to them being assessed on the coursework. Am I right in saying?
Well, on a number of different areas of assessment that had to be collated and have to be then brought together, and as a staff they have to be organised and then delivered to the examination boards in such a fashion that is done with complete honesty and complete support for every child. This was an incredible challenge. Moody, let me tell you, it's just, globally, this is massive, absolutely massive. And I would imagine that the examination boards have got their work cut out now. But prior to that, first of all, I'd just like to congratulate all those youngsters who did do their external examination, or rather were preparing for their external examinations. They've had to really dodge the ball slightly here and take a whole new approach to their learning and to their assessment. In order to be recognised at the levels that they should be recognised and even excel, because you have to understand here that young people can go into an examination having been predicted a B grade, and that's what they're anticipating that they're going to get. But it just so happens that everything is stacked in their favour. They've had a great sleep. They've got up in the morning and they're in a good position, and they go into that examination, and every one of the questions that they've been revising is there, and they nail it. And they don't get that B, they get an A star. So you've got to put this into the mix as well. What is key here, and I feel it's really, really important, is credibility. Credibility, honesty, and support for our and all youngsters who have done their examinations. What we have to do is to respect the pupils that did their examinations last year and the pupils that will do their examinations next year and the year after that. If we have to be honest with our assessment and our collation of the thousands of pieces of work, frankly, thousands of pieces of work in our small school have to be brought together. And the work that is done there has to be, again, as I say, credible. It has to be honest, and it has to reflect each individual's approach and achievement. It can't be fabricated. That would be irresponsible in the extreme. So I can say thank you very, very much to every member of staff for what they have done in collating that information, to Stella Jander and to Virginia Lowe, who have been amazing as the assessment coordinator and the examinations officer at XIC, as well as Mike Mills and Gaynor Laporte. The four of them have drawn all of this together, and it was quite amusing, actually. I was with them just after they pressed the button and it had all gone. And that's it. Right. It's done.
Oh, right.
So that happened last week, and frankly, it's playing a game on a field we've never been to before. So you have to react to that, and each and every member of staff has to work as part of that team, and they have to be working from the same sheet. So the priority is you make sure that you support and the information that has been sent through to the examination boards is credible. It is correct. It is supporting the youngster. And there's so many different things that comes into this, even down to what I was talking to you about before, is the attitude that that young people have put into their online learning. If you've not bothered to turn up to any of your lessons and you lay in your bed all day, well, that's got to have an immediate reflection on your overall grade.
Yeah, sure.
Equally so to the work that you actually present, the work that you presented beforehand. So I think it's been a very tricky time, and I do think that it's been done very well in college. It's been taken, a lot of care has been taken, a lot of time has gone into this as well, and time to give the youngsters the greatest opportunity that they could possibly have, because you're going to carry these examination certificates for the rest of your life. Quite frankly, and that is something that they have to be and should be proud of.
I understand if you don't want to answer this, and I'm sure there weren't many, if any at all, but did you get any of those that haven't bothered turning up for their lessons?
Extremely few.
Still in bed. And what happens? Do you go around like the old people that used to not wake people up in the morning with the big pole?
From a distance.
Really?
Yeah, it's quite amusing because, not amusing, it's the way it was. Mike and his team put together a register. So every single child is registered to every single lesson. So if you're missing your geography lesson at 10 o'clock, we know.
Right.
So then we contact your parent and say, is there an issue? Not, why didn't he turn up? Is there an issue why he couldn't come? Because we'd want to support him. It's difficult in lockdown. So if your daughter misses a day, is there a reason for that?
Sure.
She had burnout. She was really, really tired, really genuinely tired. And we felt, a certain amount of sympathy for her. Well, fine, then we know. But, in fairness, there were a handful. Honestly, I think honesty and transparency has got to be that. But you have a handful of children who skip school.
Right. That's always been, isn't it?
That's how it goes. But the attitude I feel that you should take is one of, is there something that we can do to help, rather than why weren't you there?
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, we were just talking, you're okay for time, but about to nip off to the new school, the secondary school, which is well underway. I mean, what sort of timescale are we looking at? How far
we're assured by the constructor and the project manager that we will be there in September.
Right.
Now,
okay.
I would like to believe that will be on the 3rd of September when we actually walk into the school, which would be fantastic because it's not a huge school. It's not a huge and complicated build. It's a very straightforward build, and they're flying along. What would be really interesting is to see today when I go there, I've got somebody that's going to join me who's going to help me with the whole idea of how they see the school flow, how human beings walk around a building and walk around a plot. The plot's been designed through conversations with students, with staff, to see how we can best create an oasis of of social activity. When you're in a classroom, that is quite different to how you are outside of a classroom. And I feel extremely strongly about the fact that you will have youngsters who are not confident academically, but they're hugely confident socially, and they're great. They're great on sports fields and on dramas, on stage and in musical events, etc. So when we are creating an environment that all of these young people can bring those skills, those tools to the front. So when you're in your class, you do your thing in your class, and the classes have been set out so that they have all of the technology that we could possibly want to support our youngsters, including the fact that they have those tablets throughout the school to support them on their from their resources. What it is outside of the classroom, a great deal of thought has gone into the plot. There are sporting areas there, such as table tennis areas, climbing walls, running tracks, sprint tracks. We want to put in little external gyms. You see them around in the parks.
Yeah.
Because this is what youngsters like to do. You know, there's also a lovely little amphitheatre where people can socialise. The cafeteria opens out into a lovely patio, which then blends into this amphitheatre area. So the idea is the thought that what children would like most and where they would like to be and how they can enjoy the site and look forward to coming to school. Because then you've absolutely nailed it. You know, you don't want people in huddles. You want people busy. You want them doing things that they like to do. So the whole sporting side of XIC will explode, because we know that the facility we have just now, we're reliant on jumping in a bus and going to the Polideportivo or walking up the road and using a sporting facility slightly away from the school. Mm-hmm. Now it's on our doorstep, and those youngsters and the staff are just going to love it. Great. But we do intend to use the building for so many other activities in the afternoons and at the weekends as well. But ideally, you know, it has all of the classrooms and facilities that we might hope to have in a modern school of this type. It's purpose-built, but it is not some huge giant. It's just got a subtlety to it, and that's what's quite key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I said to you last time, it must be nice to have been able to do this from scratch, you know, so that, as you say, all this design and the modern methods go into it. I mean, you go back 50 years. If someone had said, "Oh yes, we're paying a lady to come along and say how the building flows," they'd tell you it was a lot of hooey, a lot of my eye. But no, it's not. There's science behind it, of course.
No, there is science behind it. I mean, talking of which, you know, there's a lot of the history of the plot actually remain there. It's not everything is new. We've completely cleaned out one of the buildings, and it will be a modern science department.
Oh, I see. Right.
So there is, again, character to this. With the use of the plot itself, youngsters can get around the school very, very quickly as well. It's not something that they have to traipse from one area to another. That's been carefully thought out. But there is a technology centre. There are 3 laboratories. There's food technology, which is hugely exciting for the youngsters as well. We're looking to other courses that we'll be able to introduce that are specific to youngsters who live in this area as well. I mean, leisure and tourism jumps to mind as being one of the top ideal opportunities for youngsters who might not necessarily be hugely academic. Mm-hmm. We aren't. I mean, I know from personal experience, I struggled at school, certainly to begin with. And a little bit later on, when you find the tools that you've got in your toolkit to be able to get you through these examinations and onto university, that's another story. But I think young people, they grow and they develop and they flourish at different ages. You see young people turn the corner of reality and realizing how good they can be at different ages. That can happen at 10, but it could easily happen when you're at university. Mm-hmm. You know, I've known people go to scrape into university and then love it there and go on to do masters. So, you know, there's opportunity wherever. But the site is every time I go, it's an absolute pleasure. We took these staff about 10 days ago to the site on a Saturday.
I remember you saying, yes, that was just after you'd spoken to us.
That's
here,
right.
Yeah,
that's right. Well, they had a brilliant time. And, you know, you can see them. You could see it in their eyes. You could see them calculating what they were going to do and pre-planning it and working out. They were almost saying, which is my classroom? Where would I be working? You know, they saw the staff room. The sixth form centre is just beautiful. They have their own little area where they can make their food and they can relax, quite apart from when they're actually working. And they have this enormous window that looks across the sports area and up to the Cumbre. It's just a joy. I was actually thinking of taking it over as my office.
Right.
But I had a funny feeling that there might be about 60 youngsters that would throw me over a hedge pretty quickly.
Yeah, quite. It's already been claimed.
No, it's nice. It's really nice. And looking from the aspects of all of the classrooms, in fact, they're beautiful, airy, bright places for young people to work. The gym that is downstairs in one of the buildings. It's part basement. It's so cool in there without even turning on the air conditioning. You just feel it. It's just naturally from the stone that it's been cut out of.
Well, that's handy out here.
Hugely.
Right? Yeah.
And that will also be an examination centre.
Yeah,
so,
makes sense.
Young people will be in when they're in their worst moment of pressure, they will be in a calm and cool environment in which to do those tests. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a good place.
Great. Well, we look forward to see. I'm sure there are some photos of the sort of process so far, but all eyes on September then, and that opening up. But we'll speak to you again before that. Pop back in. I mean, you may come in and see Cal, I think, the way we're doing it. I don't know.
Is that right? Well, what I was hoping was, or intending, is it shouldn't be my perspective on this all the time. So I'm going to invite a few other people to come and face you face to face,
Great,
or Cal, and they can give their impression of what's happened over the last couple of years, but certainly what's happened over the last 8, 10, 12 weeks. And once again, like we were just speaking just now, before we started having a chat, your work and the work of Bay Radio with the community, again, I have to say thank you, because so many people talk about having been isolated, but you're less isolated when you've got somebody like yourselves on Bay actually coming into their living rooms and into their cars when they could go out in their cars, and actually talking to them and explaining to them what's exactly happening in the outside world. So good on you, and thank you so much.
No, well, thank you. Once again, I look forward to meeting some of these people, because you've mentioned them. They're quite famous names now.
Yeah,
right?
Characters.
Mike Mills, he's a big name around these parts, but I've never met him.
Yeah, well, he has a couple of drawbacks, one in particular, and he'll tell you about it when you meet him. It's to do with soccer. Can't help himself.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, we may have a different sort of viewpoint there.
Well, I think it's Manchester City is his obsession, but
Well, as long as it's been a lifelong one, he hasn't just jumped on that bandwagon in the last few years, then that's fair enough.
Lifelong, let me tell you.
Yes,
lifelong. But we that work with Mike hear about it every day.
Okay. Well, they're playing tonight, of course, return of the English Premier League later on this evening.
Yeah, so I understand.
The excitement of it all.
So I hope that you'll be able to speak to some of our colleagues, some of our parents, certainly some of our children, because that would be really the way we'd like to give the impression of what's happening with the story that is XIC.